Hi guys, this is Kenniky. Welcome to the second installment of my 2018 half-year review series, where we take a look at players' resumes for the year to see about where they should be expected to end up on the 2018 summer SSBM rank. Today we're going to be taking a look at Westballz' year. Westballz has clearly had a fall from his tenure as a top 10 player, but how has he been doing since the end of 2017? Let's find out. Keep in mind that I won't be looking at weeklies here, since they tend to be lower stakes and are usually glossed over when panelists are voting for the SSBM rank. Westballz' first tournament this year was at Genesis 5, where he took 17th place, losing to Hungrybox and Zane but beating none. This is a pretty uneventful tournament for him. Hungrybox is obviously not a bad loss, and Zane's upward momentum from the end of 2017 as well as a small difference in rank make that a set that by the numbers could go either way, and the same applies to none. At Nudes Melee Edition the following week, Westballz ended at 5th and took losses to Hugs and Lucky while beating Face Roll. Again, this is not particularly out of the ordinary for someone of Westballz' skill level. Although Hugs could be seen as a somewhat bad loss, he was coming off of a hot Genesis and was actually seated above Westballz here. Esports Arizona Talking Stick Resort 2 saw West take 3rd, beating Meds and Ty while being double eliminated by LaLuna. Again, nothing too out of the ordinary here. UCI Quarterly 4 had Westballz take 1st. Although he took a loss to Face Roll here, Westballz did end the tournament 2-1 over Face Roll in sets. Because of this, it's a little difficult to tell exactly how notable this loss to Face Roll was and how much it should affect Westballz' ranking. Ultimately, I think that it should be detrimental, but nowhere near as much as if Westballz had lost to Face Roll and not gotten the run back. At the Mango the following week, Westballz took a loss to Swedish and beat Lucky and Leffensmarth on his way to top 8, where he disqualified himself at 7th due to not feeling too well. Another pretty uneventful tournament, depending on how good you think Leffensmarth is. Full Bloom 4 saw Westballz take one of his signature upset losses, falling to K-Pan in semifinals of his pool. West then defeated Bladewise and Cyrox before falling to Duck at 17th. Just 2 weeks later, however, came one of Westballz' best performances of the year. At Nudes Oakland Edition, Westballz took 3rd, defeating Shroomed and reverse 3-rowing Wizrobe twice, losing only to the arguably top 2 players in the world, Plup and Hungrybox. As a player who at this point was on the verge of dropping out of top 20, 2 wins over a top 10, arguably top 7 player in the world was definitely a huge plus to Westballz' resume. Unfortunately, this period of time happened to exemplify one of Westballz' most well-known traits, his inconsistency. At Flatiron 3, he finished at 25th, taking questionable losses to Luigi Kamaster and Spark. The very next week, at Super Smash Sunday 64, Westballz took 1st, defeating Lucky, STJ, SFAT, and Hugs, and only dropping 1 set to Lucky. This is a tournament performance that I think is only barely below the level of Westballz' Nudes Oakland run. Defeating 4 players who could all be argued to be around top 15 in one go is an extremely good showing. At Smash Summit 6, Westballz took losses to Leffen, Wizrobe, and None, while beating Ginger, getting 13th, being another pretty uneventful tournament for him. Westballz' next major, Get On My Level 2018, saw him take 17th, defeating Ryan Ford while dropping sets to Mewtwo and KJH. Both Ryan Ford and KJH have actually had similar years so far, starting out at around 30th to 35th rank and steadily rising to top 20 to 25 threads. So Westballz' performance here is better than it seems at first glance, although this still wasn't a great showing for him. Finally, at Zockade 2018, Westballz added another first place to his resume, taking the tournament from winners and defeating SFAT, Face Roll, and Army. Overall, if you look at Westballz' year, he honestly hasn't been doing that badly. He has 5 sets on top 10 players and a couple of pretty impressive tournament wins. Unfortunately, Westballz' worst performances tend to occur at the larger tournaments of the year, such as Full Bloom and Flatiron, while his best ones are at smaller tournaments like SSS, Nudes Oakland, and Zockade, giving off the impression that he hasn't been doing as well. Additionally, I think that people are still kind of used to seeing Westballz as a top 10 level player. So a loss to, for example, None seems kind of suspicious, when in reality it isn't that bad based on their current rankings. It also doesn't help that Westballz has historically had a very polarizing matchup spread, doing well against fast followers while struggling more versus floatier characters. This tends to increase his upset potential in both directions, and makes his wins over Foxes and Falcons ranked higher than him seem less impressive since he's good at the matchup, while his losses to lower ranked players stick out more since the rank disparity is usually a lot bigger. Honestly though, most of Westballz' bad performances this year have been matched by equally good ones, and with that in mind for the first half of 2018, I think that Westballz should actually be placed pretty similarly to his current ranking, just inside top 20. Save as Untitled was right, Westballz really hasn't gotten worse. That does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and found it interesting. I think that Westballz' rank is something that isn't as clear cut, so hopefully this video isn't just old news. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.